All right. Both of you, I can't say enough, and I know I've just said this offline, but this is so needed. And I think we do such a heavy lift, as educators and as people in our school community to ensure that every child is known and heard and valued. And we know that the triad is the family. We know that hey, we're a support system for families too. And so this is so timely. We're coming off of, the holidays, and it's the month of love. And I just can't say enough about how much I appreciate the two of you. Not only just the community that you've created for yourselves at Level Up, but that the fact that you're willing to share the journey that you've been on and the success that you've had. So everyone who's joining us right now, thank you for being here. I'm Jeanette Simonson, happy to elevate the conversation with our two guest panelists today. And I'm going to kind of share my screen, hand it over to them so that they can introduce themselves and share their journey. Let me make sure I share the right screen though. So give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so let me give the slideshow here. So you have joined, we're talking about communities, and we're talking about communities in the sense that communities are growing together, but certainly from a parent engagement, family engagement strategy. So I'm Jeanette Simonson. As I mentioned, these are my strengths. And the reason we put these up here is because we're talking about strengths nights. So we've got some things in common, I noticed, even though we've known each other for a couple of years. So I'm happy to present to you Molly and Amber, if you guys would like to take it over. And we've got a lot of people in the chat, so please share with us where you're calling in or where you're coming in from and what kind of brought you here.
Okay, thank you. We're from Level Up Academy. We are a K-8 public charter school in the state of Minnesota. I'm Molly Dandele. I'm the executive director there. Creative thinking, leadership, assertiveness, compassion, and analytical are my Thrively strengths. Amber.
I'm Amber Espinosa. I'm our director of mission and vision. And I'm also a parent of a 7th grader at Level Up, which gives me a double lens on what's happening. And my strengths are leadership, assertiveness, worldly, verbal, and academic.
So we're here to share with you something that we created with the intentional use of the Thrively platform and of the Thrively Strengths Assessment. And we created what we call a strength celebration. And it's a way for us to bring our entire community together of educators and students and families as one unit to connect around something we all have in common. And that is that we all have strengths, and these strengths are needed in order to make our community the best it can be. So we'd like to start with the why. Why did we develop a strength celebration? Why do we use our Thrively strengths at Level Up Academy? And there are 4 things that I would say really resonate with the why. One is that one of the pillars of our school, we have 4 pillars, and one of them is called We Connect. So there is a foundational belief and a very strong value with connection already at our school, where we believe that relationships truly are the glue and really provide the essence of what children need to succeed in an educational environment, and what teachers need and what families need as well. So that connection is strong, and strengths provide that connection. Another reason why is because we strive to build a learner-centric environment where teachers are not the only people who hold knowledge, but students do, as do families. And together, when we learn in a learner-centric environment, we see the students as learners, we see the educators as learners, and we see families as learners as well. And when we connect and we grow together, we become more cohesive. Another reason that we built the strength celebration is around family engagement. We know after COVID in our community, families are looking for a physical in-person connection with each other because we know we lost that around the COVID time. And as much work as we did bringing it to a virtual environment, it just isn't the same. So we set up our strength celebration to happen as the first big event in our school as a way to create a positive environment and a welcoming space for families in hopes that they will return for other events moving forward. And the fourth reason why is around equity. The strengths assessment and the Thrively program are for every learner in our community. It's not just for some. We know that every student and every human in our community does have strengths. And when we look at that and we see the good in others and ourselves, it becomes a more equitable environment in which to learn. And go to the next slide. So there's a lot that we do in preparation for our strengths celebration night. And this picture shows a classroom of learners with their strength celebration shirts on that say I am, and they are able to show their strengths. But there's a lot of preparation prior to holding a strengths celebration. So this is what we do. First and foremost, we have a motto that says what we expect of our students, we require of ourselves. And we find that as an educator team, when we do the things that we believe are right for students, we deeply understand what it is that we are teaching, and we connect on a really personal level. And it's extremely effective. So what we do first before students even come into the building at the beginning of the year is we retake our Thrively Strengths Assessment. We share them in a community circle like you see these students doing here. We talk about our own strength stories. We share strength stories of our teammates, and we get to know our strengths deeply. This way, when students come in, right off the bat in the first 2 weeks, we are giving them the Thrively Strengths Assessment. We are helping them share their strength stories. We are helping them share strength stories about their classmates. And we are doing activities that allow students to deeply know their own strengths and who they are as learners. So we believe that preparation really sets us up for a strength celebration that allows students to communicate with community members around knowing their strengths and the strengths of others. I'll pass it to Amber, who has a story to share about this.
Yeah, this picture is actually of our second grade class, and I had the opportunity to go into this class and help coach alongside the teacher to teach the second graders about their strengths. And I'm amazed at what they could do, because when we first began and we went around the circle and I asked the question, what is something you are good at? I was amazed to find that many of the kids struggled to be able to name something that they were good at. And that was the beginning of talking about our strengths. And as they grew to the point where every single child in that circle was able to name their strength and give a very specific example of how they use their strengths. And they just shine when they do that. It was just amazing to see how being able to name a strength gave them language and to be able to tell a very specific story. And then take that to our middle school level, where we were hosting a tour of our school for other educators. And I got to host a circle where I asked our older students what their strengths were, and the level of depth and specificity that they were able to use to explain their strengths was one of the things that was most impactful on all the other educators, to hear them say their name and their strength and a really specific time that they used that, especially for middle schoolers who are so often so hard on themselves and so critical of one another, it just really changes the tone of the whole room when everyone starts talking about their strengths. You can go on to the next slide. All right, and so as we gathered then for the strength celebration, one of the best things that we did was take the first few minutes. You can see in the photo on the left there, we took the first just 10 minutes to gather all the parents together before they joined up with the students who were in class. And we explained what strengths-based learning is. And I have to say that presentation was one of my favorite moments ever in education, because I got to stand in front of a group of parents and say, when your child comes to Level Up Academy, we are asking the question, what is strong with you? Not the question, what is wrong with you? And I could see parents and grandparents tearing up when they heard that, because especially our school is a choice school. And so students that come to our school have often had negative experiences other places and have found school to be a place where they find out what is wrong with them, and they lose their confidence as they grow. And to see the parents' faces and to see them just be able to resonate with that, and to be able to see their own child in a new way, and to hear us say that was just one of the most powerful 10 minutes I've ever had. So I would say that is definitely a thing that is worth doing to engage the community and really help them understand what it is they're there to do when they come to the strength celebration. And then in the picture on the right, you'll see just the back of my son, Andrew, right there. And what he is doing is he's there with my mom, who came with him to the strength celebration, and they are putting their strengths on a community strength grid. So you'll see stickers there, and each of the sheets of paper has the strengths on them, and each person was adding their sticker to their strengths. And my mom hadn't taken the Thrively Strengths Assessment yet. I had, but she hadn't. And so she looked at Andrew and she said, I don't know what my strengths would be. What would you say they are? And it makes me tear up every time I say it. He was able to look at those strengths and name them for my mom. And it was just such a beautiful moment for the two of them that I can't even say what that meant to them, and what it means to me to know that they are seen in that way to each other, and that they found some strengths that they have in common. And it was just a really powerful moment. So imagine that happening over and over and over again throughout the whole community. It was a really powerful event.
So I know there have to be questions about logistics, right? Like, how does this happen? What does it look like? And we're providing at the end tools and resources, so you certainly don't have to invent your own, or if you're already doing this, you can add to your own celebrations that you already have established. These are some highlights about activities that took place during the strength celebration. It was an hour long. 10 minutes was the kickoff, the presentation, to, as Amber said, to pull all family members into one unit around a true understanding of why we are talking about strengths, why starting with strengths is critical in our learning environment. And once we had that, our family members went off to find their students, and they traveled to different locations in the school where different activities were being held. On a very celebratory level, we had a photo booth, and the photo booth was, obviously you see pool noodles there. I got this idea from the Minnesota State Fair and their literacy on a stick, which is a must go see if you're from the state of Minnesota. But I turned their idea in using the alphabet to create words, and I put our strengths into a graphic form. All of the strengths were there, and children could choose their strength, put it in the noodle, and that was a photo booth. Something that I like to share is that these were individual photos. You see the photo of 3, those are siblings right there. So some family is going home with a photo of all of their children with their strengths, and we have a grandfather. So it's a mix of the people who interacted with the photo booth, and the essence of that, like I said, is celebratory. This entire event was built around celebrating our strengths and intentionally holding a space to not only learn together, but to connect with others. When we share a strength with someone else, it's a very easy thing to say, you are a creative thinker too. And there's immediate connection. In addition, we also held space for family members to have conversations with their children and the friends of their children around strength stories. So from the photo booth, just on this slide, if you look over to the strengths graph, that's a small representation of what Amber was showcasing in the last slide with her son and her mother. We had a community graph available for family members to come and showcase their strengths, but we also had one for our staff. So families could come and see where are the strengths of the people, the educators in this building. We had a graph for every classroom. So each classroom showcased these graphs, which gave a very, just an overall perspective of the strengths within that classroom, which was very impactful. On an individual level, we created, our students and adults in our building created strengths posters. And you can see an example of Mr. Krieger's strengths poster along with the student in his classroom. These were all over our walls and continue to stay. We will not be taking our strengths posters down until the end of the school year. Every teacher, administrator, adult in the building has one. We invited everyone to take part and we had 100% participation, and every student. So our walls are lined with strengths. It is intentional to show that the people in our community are seen and valued. So that was like a museum walk, so to speak, where family members could go and see the strengths of others. Like I said, we set aside intentional time to share strength stories, and through a Thrively document shared with us and that we are sharing back with you, there was guidance around how to hold these conversations with your children and with friends of your children, to really highlight how you use strengths, or where have you seen your strength, how have you used your strengths today or this week. And then, of course, there were family resources. So once they experienced this information around strengths, celebrating their strengths, we gave packets of information that families could take home to continue the conversation, like questions around how might you change the question that you ask when you see your child come home from school. So instead of something like, hey, how was school today? Fine, right? Or not great or terrible. We advise parents or said to parents, here's a suggestion, ask how they use their strengths today, and start having those conversations embedded in the conversations you have at home. I also want to backtrack, and a huge part that I missed in this is that in preparing, educators and students all took the strengths assessment. We also gave access for our families to take the strengths assessments prior to coming. So when we're talking about documenting graphs and having these conversations, the families who said yes to taking those assessments really had a deeper or more meaningful time there when they could reflect on their own strengths and their strengths of their teachers and their children there too. We can go on to the next slide.
it was amazing to see, this was just a few weeks afterward that we did our first survey of the year, and it was it's almost unbelievable, honestly, the percentage of people who responded to our survey, and the overwhelming amount of people who said that our school has created a positive environment, that their child is respected, that that their family feels welcome at school. 98.9% are saying their child is respected by LUA staff. And I think that question of what is strong with you instead of what is what is strong with you instead of what is wrong with you just pervades our whole culture, and it comes across in that our children feel known and cared for and seen, our families feel welcome, and building from strengths just changes the tone so much of what happens in education. So we are just incredibly moved by the fact that that happened in our surveys, and focusing on strengths is what sets the foundation for that, and building relationships around strengths. I love these quotes that one kiddo said, "This may sound weird, but I like school." That's what they had in their comments in the survey. And then a parent said this: "You know each student so well and individualize instruction to their strengths. The growth we've seen in our kids is amazing." And that is it. There is a transformation that I've seen in my own kids, and that I see over and over and over again in our students and families when they come in and they feel known and appreciated, and they can build from there. And it really is transformative, especially for students who have had other kinds of educational experiences where it didn't go well at school for them. And this capturing their strengths just turns the whole story for them.
I've done mute too, not just both of you. And I don't know how many of you, and I'm seeing the chat, the words like empowering. I mean, I'm sitting here, I just got the chills 3 times. And Amber, just your stories, give us ideas on how to start stepping away again from what's wrong with us. We're always trying to fill in gaps, and if there's learning loss and things like that, but we know, and I'm curious, my question, and certainly any of you who have questions, this is a resonating question that comes out from many conversations with schools. What have you seen academically? You have put your focus on, a human, perspective here. You have to take time away to do this from maybe strict academics. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've seen, or maybe even some people will say, our teachers might fight against this, any kind of conversation that you had to help your teachers move forward with this thinking?
I think if I were to describe what this is, I would say this is setting a foundation for learning. And without that, the learning doesn't go nearly as far. So just to invest in building a strong foundation and building confidence, it creates, the foundation. That's the only word I can use to say it's the foundation to build on from there. And that we get a lot of kids who have divested completely from school. They're not invested, they don't care, and they're going to come in and they can either invest in our community, invest in their learning, or undermine it. And so building that foundation is essential. I just don't think we could do any kind of learning without it.
I would add to that the level of advocacy from our students helps them in all different aspects. So when they know themselves and they know their strengths, they're at a position to be okay with speaking up. They are at a position to ask for help. They're in a position to have relationships with the adults in their school and outside of their school in a very different way. So I agree with Amber that this is foundational. I think if you asked educators at our school if they would teach any other way, I think they would walk away. Like doing this now is so embedded, and we've seen so much success. The changes in our students they're amazing. And quite frankly, during this time where educators are leaving in droves, teachers at Level Up Academy, which cannot compete salary-wise with local schools, we are staying. They are staying. And a lot of that is around positive environment and the relationships that we have built with our students and with each other through recognizing strengths.
Yeah. Well, Robert Waldinger did 8 decades of research on adults, and the number one thing is healthy relationships for happiness, and health. I think this is a health crisis we're coming out of too. So I just can't thank you guys enough for sharing your creativity and energy. And I know a lot of people are wondering, okay, how do I do this tomorrow? How do I do this next week, next month? And so the resources, I'm going to share right now a presentation. Whoops, I didn't mean to. I got to go over here in the chat. I'm going to share the presentation with all of you who are here. If you're watching this on recording, the presentation will be linked to the recording. But if you're new to Thrively and you want to take the strength assessment, it is absolutely free. That's the wonderful part about it. Everyone can take a strength assessment for free. Join Thrively. You can join as an educator, a parent, a student. You can do this with your own kids at home, even if their school doesn't subscribe to this. I know I was very surprised to learn that my own kids, had the strengths they had, because I know them in a different light, and then we'd have those conversations like you said. So very simply, just go to thrively.com, join, and then you will be able to link your Google or what have you. I know you talked a little bit about didn't mean to jump ahead, how to do this for families. And so we work together as partners. And for any of you who are using Thrively, reach out to anybody at Thrively, support@thrively.com. We will step in and we will work with you along the way to create resources that are very specific to your needs. That's what happened here. But we created, and we'll share this with you in the presentation, just how to log in and create your family account. Because if you have more than one, child at a school or different schools, you're going to have this. And so learn how awesome your child is on the left, and then you can take the assessment. It's a little different for your K-3s. And certainly we learned a little bit together along the way in terms of how to do this, but really inviting those families, as you said, before you come to the night, so that you have those really rich conversations and you're talking the same language. So this link document is in the presentation for those of you that are clicking on that link right now. I want to pause because Sophia is asking a question. How do we do this for literacy night? Absolutely. Well, let me ask Pamela. Let me ask Amber and Molly. What would you, if you had a literacy night, how would you maybe modify this or do it?
Yeah, I have ideas. Do you want to go, Amber? I'm sure you do too.
Either way, you go first and then I'll go.
I would say like the essence of sharing a strength story is really critical. So whether you're reading strength stories that have been written, or you are writing strength stories about yourself or others, to me is an easy connection to literacy. And I also believe I'm always an advocate of like speaking skills and being able to speak and present. And I think there are certainly parts of literacy that could come into that, oral reading or oral presentation as well.
I thought the same thing, the strength stories. The other piece that came to mind for me is the whole idea of vocabulary, all the strengths, and learning what those words mean is huge. And so I think being able to understand what the word of the strength means and then apply it in a story that's so rich in literacy right there.
Mm-hmm. And, in Thrively, and a lot of people are asking about free accounts. Taking the strength assessment is free to any human who wants to log in. We have things like chrysanthemum, getting used to your name and why your name is important is in our playlists and our lessons. So Thrively doesn't just stop with, learning about our strengths. It's then taking those strengths, learning how to use them. We have actually an entire playlist created by one of our most fabulous curriculum designers who really dives into that concept of vocabulary. And then how do I use my strengths in an academic or personal environment? How do I celebrate and connect with others that are similar or different, right? I love creating divergent thinking groups. And so we do have the ability to be able to create groupings based on strengths as well. That's part of the more the paid program. But I think, inviting those families, we are providing everybody who fills out the form that I just put in here. I will be sending you a PDF. Molly, I can't thank you enough, Amber, for creating this toolkit. I know you created it along with, one of our Thrively employees. But this toolkit, I'm going to escape out real quick and just show you what you're getting. It's 7 pages of really, some resources. Why invest in the strength celebration? We've got, obviously some great resources. You can share this with all your staff. Maybe you're a teacher who's joining us today and you want to escalate this up to administration, why this is important. So lots of really good resources here. And I will also, and thank you for making all of these just clickable links to be able to have our participants today be able to engage with this right away. We are all here. I'm going to put my email address as well as our support for if you ever want to brainstorm. We love brainstorming. We love coming up with creative ideas. And as I mentioned, we've got some wonderful employees here who help us with the creative design of it all. So in jumping in, because I want to honor everybody's time, you can reach out to me, Jeanette@thrively.com. I'm happy to connect you to the right person to really think through how you can design this for your environment. I'm sure that Molly and Amber would love to connect with like-minded people too. So let us know what you need. And certainly we can stay on for a minute or two if anybody has any other questions. Claudia asked, is the Thrively account free for parents? It absolutely is. There is a way once you roster all your students to be able to quickly invite parents to it. So again, if you get to that stage and you need some help, we can absolutely help you. Let's see, Eric is asking us, is the doc you just shared in the slide stack? It is not. So Eric, if you wouldn't mind, or anybody else, the form that I shared with you, if you wouldn't mind just kind of filling that out really quickly and saying, listen, I would like the toolkit, I will email it off to you tonight and make sure you have access to it. It's not a URL right now. So the webinar slides and recording will be made available. If those of you who want to come back and you want to share the recording with a friend, thrively.com/webinars. I'll put that in the chat here as well. And you can check out any of our webinars we have. Let me spell correctly first, because that won't help you. Any of the webinars we've done in the past are all at this website here, and the recording will be shared with all of you who've attended and anybody else who's registered. So again, thank you, Amber. Thank you, Molly, for creating an environment that is so rich in your school and being just a model for others. We need our trailblazers to show us how we can do things. So keep innovating. I'm so excited to continue to partner with you, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with all of us today. So any other final parting words?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Thrively. I think Amber and I imagined an educational space many, many years ago. And when we found Thrively 2 years ago, we were like, wait, like somebody already did a lot of the things that we were inventing ourselves. So the partnership with Thrively has been amazing. And one of the parts of the toolkit is the brainstorming folder when we asked our Thrively people to come and brainstorm with us around building a strengths celebration. So that's kind of how this evolved. And we just want to say thanks to you all for that. Amber?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Ditto. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone have a great evening and afternoon. I'm just showcasing the collaborative work that we've all kind of done together. Let's keep creating, let's keep innovating, let's keep elevating strengths, and really focus on what's strong with all of you. I know that you guys all need that boost out there in the world of education. So you all have strengths, and I appreciate all that you are doing. I can't wait to connect, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you, ladies. Yes, and thank you, Level Up. All right. And you both have a great afternoon. Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. That was fun.
See you. Thanks for the
You know?
opportunity.
Yes,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
All right.
Have
Good
a
night,
day.
everybody.
Bye.